Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Derek Wandera, sitting in for the usual host of this show, the Hot Seat, on KFM. Today is the 27th of September, 2024. When the day started, it started on a very gloomy note, and the studio right now is in a gloomy note, and all of us are in tears because one of us, a legend and one astute journalist, has bowed out, and his name, Onapito Ekomoloit.
Ona. Look, Andrew, I think for me, I was actually thinking about this attack as I came to the studio. And what saddens me most is that on both sides, on the side of the ADF or whoever they may be, and on the side of Ugandans, there is a dehumanization of our collective spirit as a country. If you start with the people who killed those young ones, and apparently they're also kids in their own right.
The people who did what?
Who killed the kids.
Yes.
Some of them are also kids. That's the first element of dehumanization that is worrying. How can something like this repeatedly happen in a nation whereby you're having young people
killing
young people, and they are being turned into beasts, to say the least. But then there's even a more worrying element. There is also collective lack of outrage in the nation. It just becomes another story. After a week, two, it's forgotten. So we are even losing that humanness, if I may call it, of feeling for each other. And that's very worrying, that people can actually move on so fast. In some societies, there would be national prayers, there would be what people would really be saying, this is unacceptable.
Ona, with that basis, can you help our listeners understand what exactly is the crisis in FDC?
In the book Tears and Triumphs, My Life, the Yoweri Museveni, I actually opined that way back in 2001, while supporting Yoweri Museveni against Kizza Besigye, by then I think it was Reform Agenda, I indicated why Besigye would be a dangerous choice for the country, namely that his group was a loose coalition of anti-Musevenists, but perhaps with nothing much in common, and they could crumble once in office. Of course, over the years, I thought I'd made an opportunistic assessment in terms of supporting the ruling party. But the latest incidents seem to perhaps give that fear that, assuming Besigye had taken power in one of his alleged victories, maybe would have ended up with a chaotic situation. Yet at the same time, I'm not surprised, and actually do sympathize with what I think they are going through, given the nature of our politics. And the winner take it all politics is so crushing to the opposition. It doesn't matter how closely you try, how much effort you put, so long as you don't get power, you have nothing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the two voices, the two clips belong to the voice that has just fallen of Onapito Ekomoloit. I'm joined by a huge panel and experienced journalists and pundits to discuss, but also to give us their recap of what they remember. On my extreme right is another legend and a senior journalist, Joseph Beyanga. Joseph, you're welcome to the show, by the way. It's been...
Thank you. Very strange.
Yeah.
Indeed, it's a strange day. I mean, I don't know how you welcome me, but yeah, thank you.
I am also struggling to welcome you and put titles to you.
You're supposed to be welcoming.
I know. But I know that times change. Yeah. And on my opposite side is Dismas Nkunda, also another astute journalist who has been in and out of the media.
No. Once in the media industry, you never leave.
Yes.
It's like Hotel California. When you check in, you never check out.
Who is in the media industry and has always been with Ona? welcome to this show.
Thanks, Derek. Thank you, Derek.
And then on my extreme left is Jimmy Jimmy Odoki Achelam from the civil society. Also another person who has been with ONA for some very long time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Derek. It's a very sad day. ONA was a good man.
Yeah, it's a sad day, and I want to begin from there. I want to begin with you, Joe. What's your memory on the first time that you met ONA?
So the first time I met ONA was he was a president's press secretary. I don't know which one I should give you, the physical one or interacting with his work. So the first time I met ONA was in Monitor. By then it was not yet a daily, it was I think a tri-weekly. And he was writing, covering the CA. That's when I started reading a bit more passionately. I think I was in S5, that's around 1994. And then a few days later, I think he went to do his master's. And he was writing a column still in a Monitor, and it was From a Distance. From a Distance became a bit more, you know, like at home in Bushenyi, it was like, in the household, it was like a family favorite. We would read it and then discuss it. And then fast forward, you come to early 2000s now, when I was working by then KFM was Monitor FM, and Onapito was the president's press secretary. And I was discussing with Andrew Mwenda, the people to invite on the show, and he said, I should bring ONA, you know, Andrew talks.
Yes.
So lo and behold, ONA came, and he was among, that's when this show, the Band of Journalists, was being constituted. So ONA was among the first to get on the panel when he was the president's press secretary. And you can imagine, that's over almost 25 years, you know, he's been part of the show. So the first time I see ONA, you know, always, you know, by then he was always in a suit when he was working with the president. And I was like, first I was like, wow, this is the guy who writes complicated English. And when he began to speak, he was a bit more calm, collected, than, you know, the other hard English. You know, I think it was even hard for us because we were learning English. And then I discovered he has this nice sense of humor. It's cheeky but very witty. And then, you know, by then, you know, somebody who hangs around with him, who is the president's press secretary. So when he would be speaking, you would stretch out your ears a bit longer. And then when off the mic, just a normal person, very nice. He's like, oh, so he would ask, when it, not on the first meeting, I think like on the second, third meeting, he will start asking you personal stories. So who are you? What are you doing here? What's your passion? And then when he, depending on the response you give him, he say, okay. And then you think the conversation has ended. He comes the next Friday, he continues the conversation. So he was never a man who you bump into, not like me and this Masinkunda who can talk for 3 days, like we've known each other forever. Now, ONA takes his time, but when he welcomes you into his life, it becomes a personal relationship.
Yeah. I feel on this show I am the youngest, and all these people here are my seniors, so I want them to speak. And I come to you, Dismas. Dismas, you probably have been in the newsroom with ONA longer than maybe any of us in this.
Did they meet at school, at the university?
I think so.
The first mass comm class? Second mass comm class.
Yeah. I want to give you as many minutes.
No, you don't have to. Other people can speak. I mean, ONA is bigger than one individual. So ONA, I met him in 1989, mass comm. So the first mass comm class, that is the Rugalambis, the Jimmy Chiberus,
yes,
those ones were got from campus. They had already joined campus
on other courses.
So they introduced mass communication and said, who wants to apply for mass communication? They applied and then they joined. But ONA and our class, we were the ones who came directly from senior 6.
and expressed interest in the course.
Yes, and you applied for mass communication. So Ona used to sit behind me in class. We were only 17 students. So he used to sit behind me. We became friends. We would talk. Even then, we were politically different because I remember during the guild elections, he was supporting a different candidate or supporting a different candidate, but it didn't stop us, like Jose is saying, it didn't stop us from being friends. We became very close friends to the level that I think it was only Onapito and Susan Sibirwa who got upper seconds in our class. Some of us missed it by a few marks, but we missed it. But Onapito was essentially my friend in and through. We left Makerere University together, joined the Monitor. I think we were the first 2 reporters who were recruited by Charles Onyangobo. And we started, the paper had just started. We took a gamble, a newspaper which is starting and you are not very sure whether it's going to survive or not. But me and him and I think Martin Mpungu and Susan Sibiba were the first few that they took on. So Onapito, not only were we working in the same office on the Winton Road where the Monitor was. First it was somewhere on Entebbe Road, but then we shifted to the Winton Road. And then we were staying in the same house in Amasuba.
After the university?
Yes.
Okay.
We were staying in, we rented the same house. You wouldn't guess who the owner of the house was or was at that time, Ben Kavuya.
Wow.
So we stayed together. We became so tight that even I started learning Ateso from him. His brothers, his sisters, his brother-in-law, his family were all part of the family. They would come, stay at home, and Onapito, everybody knew that it was my brother. After that, of course, we defected from Monitor to start the Crusader.
How long had that been in Monitor?
Oh, we left the Monitor in 1995, so we had spent there 3 years.
Okay.
So we went to start the Crusader. Onapito became the editor-in-chief, and I was the business manager. So we continued like that. I was at his wedding, he was at my wedding, he got his girlfriend with the same house. Anyway, like Joe said, then he went to study in the US at the American University, then he came back. When he came back, then he had, some issues because he was a little bit radical. By then, when he had come back from America,
I think he was not a bit radical. He was
more realistic.
Even before you left Monitor, sorry to interject, even from a distance,
yes,
he began to get radical in that quorum.
Yes. And actually, Charles Onyangobo even told him that you have become too radical for Uganda journalism, plainly, like that. Because Onapito had changed, had become really a typical American journalist, and the interpretation, it's not this year as our journalism of interpretation.
She
said no, it wasn't. But the good thing is that I think he wrote it in his book. Me and him, we went and negotiated. Actually, there is a page where he left me to write something about him as his housemate. And I remember when we started working, then one of the editors, Charles, the late Richard Tebere, Richard Tebere asked me and Ona, how much salaries do you want? It was in 1992. I went home, me and Ona, we were agonized for a long time.
When you were joining Monitor?
No, we had joined already. Okay. We had spent there like maybe about 3-4 weeks. So he asked us, what salaries would you like? We agonized, me and Ona, we sat, we said, how much can we ask? So we eventually asked 240,000 Uganda shillings. Do you know what Monitor paid us?
No.
360.
And that money was some money at that time.
It was good money. But it's not about the money. It is actually about how I told Onapito, this money is a lot. We can't just be spending it. We eat little in our home, me and you. We buy 1 kilo of meat. It takes us for 2 days, and Kaunga build a house in the village. That is how Onapito built his house in the village in Asalata. And that is how I bought the first house for my mother.
Wow. So in what actually what made the company pay you 360 when you had asked for 240?
I don't know. I think they discovered that we were asking less, yet we were worth more.
Okay.
So we got surprised and said, "Oh shit, we should have asked for." Sorry for my English.
Well, let's go for a quick commercial break, and then we return. We shall pick it up from there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is a hot seat featuring very experienced journalists and pundits to discuss the topical issue of today, and we are just going to talk Ona. I want to come to you, Onapito. Most of us have called him Ona, but it's called Onapito Ekomoloit. When I use the word Ona, just know I have cut his name short. Onapito. Jimmy, tell me about the first time you remember meeting Onapito.
So the first time I met him was here in the studio. I used to come to meet Angelo. Angelo Zama. I used to try to meet Andrew, then I ended up meeting Angelo more. And then I would see him coming on Friday, going out. But I used to read the Crusader as well. So meeting him in person was from here at KFM. It was the Friday. It was Andrew Mwenda live. Then on Friday it would be the Friday panel. Many other people, and then of course you'd think that's the press secretary to the president. It might be very difficult to talk to. But then, as I got to know many more people here, I found him a very nice person, easy to interact with, very humble. And he had also studied in Gulu, where I come from. So I don't know if that was a very good connection, but he seemed to just get along with everyone very well. So I think that was around 2005-06 when I met him from here. And then much later, of course, when I became regular, I come here more frequent, I interacted with him more and more.
When you met on, I was in P7, I was finishing my P7.
So I was at campus, but I think I was not really interested in what I was studying, so I spent more time coming here to...
Actually, Jimmy, he just mentioned something and it struck me. Because I was always behind silent, and Jimmy would come and sit there and watch and listen and even take notes. And then walk away without even saying so much. So
I know.
So, but I think last year when was his book launch and when he was handing over, I think he tried to reach to each of us, like personally calling and even telling me, look for so and so in Gulu, you should come, this family, and they seem to be. I thought him having worked with government would be hesitant to connect with. Some people thought to be in the other side or in so, but
which side of the line?
Yes, to begin with, I gave him a biography about my father, and he had been in prison fighting government. So I thought, what will Ona think about this? But then he gave the endorsement that I never ever expected with the Dismas here. So I found that a bit strange that. Some people are very careful. They don't want to be seen with so and so, and he was very balanced. Whenever you listen to him on talk shows, if some positions were not clear, he did not come out. He would put his position in a very unique, explain or bring in a proverb or something to make his point. May not agree, may not disagree. So. He had a very unique personality, related with everyone. Was another friend of mine who was a journalist here was saying maybe he even forgets he's the corporate affairs director, because how we think someone should, if you're a big person, you should be. But he interacted. He was a very social man.
Yeah, interesting, and I think you make it even look more of what he has died as a man who is that down to earth, even when he's articulating his issues. Very vast with knowledge, very, very, very exposed. But even the way he brings out his information is in a very modest way. There are people who know, and when they're bringing out their information, like they want to show you that they know. I mean, they know. Yes, he knows. He's going to be very modest at bringing out that. But probably the person who knows now much more than we actually do and knows him in darkness and in light, and at night and during the day, is this Dismas Nkunda. I want to come to you again to help us just understand what made Ona special. I know, for instance, just generally in his life, but also I know, for instance, in your class you had so many people, but what is that striking character that made you connect with him even more, to going to stay together and living together all that time?
You know, there is always this perception that Bayanga will tell you, we people from the West, that you can't be able to deal with someone from the East or from the North. It's a perception which exists, and it's one of the most stupid things that I've ever heard.
I mean, I definitely have a different.
So Ona, irrespective of the fact that he came from Soroti, he studied in Gulu, he studied in Tororo College. He had a broad understanding and a broad mind of knowing and being able to adapt himself to be able to deal with any person, irrespective of where the person comes from or whichever character that it is. I remember Onapito, when we were at Crusader, he used to be very tough. As the editor-in-chief, used to be very tough. If you're writing some crap story, he would be very tough with you.
Crap meaning a bad story.
A bad story, shabby and not well written, and he would be tough on you. But at the same time, he would tell you the next day that, you see, now the next time you come here, I'll show you how they write a good story and craft it for you so that you look good, not him. So that humbleness of a person being able to say, I can help others get to the level. Today I was reading on former Twitter X, there's a kid who is crying, and the kid is saying, the only thing that I miss is Onapito to be there on my graduation. I think there was a program he started at Nile Breweries.
Oh, that's a comment from Ongu Dennis.
Yes.
And he says, as a beneficiary of Nile Breweries Equality Scholarship Program, a brainchild of Papa Ona, this drains me into too much pain to believe that he won't see me graduate, having done all it takes to ensure I attain a decent education in elite institutions. Rest well, Papa.
Yes.
So, let me interrupt a bit. You know the person who the best to be admitted to the law program. You know, we shared in the WhatsApp group, and Ona said the best person is a science student.
Yes.
But he did not explain how he helped that person get a scholarship. I only read in the Sunday Monitor. So that humility, it's me who helped her, but he just left it at that. The person was, scored. But
you remember even at the launch of his book, you remember the group of children that were there, that were dancing, and you don't do those things these days. As people have become too materialistic. But Ona, he knew where he came from. It wasn't a very prosperous family background, but the humility with which he helped others is something that is outstanding. I can see Okuda is here.
We are joined by another.
I hope he doesn't speak in Ateso.
he has the mandate to speak. We are joined by Ivan Okuda, who is a lawyer, but also has been in the journalism world. By the time you came, we have been discussing that very first time you met Ona. What do you memorize about it?
Yeah, thank you. I've done the African thing of coming late. I was caught up in traffic jam, but I thought
forgiven, please.
Thank you. I thought it important.
No, they were electing Semakade.
No, the Semakade election is tomorrow.
Please don't bang the table.
And I want banging tables here.
Oh, they were campaigning. Finally.
Yeah, it's colleagues and fellow countrymen, a very sad loss. So, unlike my brother Dismas, who was not prepared, I was prepared for Ona's death 2 days ago. I got a call from Chris Obore, and he first pauses and says, Ivan, do you know the biggest disasters happened in Tenso? I said, what is it? So in my head, I'm thinking, Has there been a flood? Has there been
rained?
Has there been a landslide? What's happening? So
Or has someone been sacked?
then he pauses. He says, I even have a headache. So I say, but Chris, what's happening? He says the biggest disaster has happened. So he calls my name 3 times on the call. Then he says, do you know that Onapito has stage 4 lung cancer? I take a pause. He tells me he wants to keep it extremely confidential and private between him and his family. So I didn't want to hide it from you, but don't tell other people because we should respect his privacy. So yesterday he calls me again. He says, the report says 90% of the lungs are damaged. So, and now he's not responding to treatment. So the first thing I do is go to the internet with my Lugezigez. So I do a Google search, lung cancer. You know, most of the results you'll find will be US, European medical science journals. Causes of lung cancer, and you know, Onapito was not a smoker. He lived one of the most fit lifestyles, minded what he ate. He had the treadmill in his Kisasi house.
And walked.
No job,
you know. So, but it's one of those very difficult cancers because when I called Andrew Mwenda today to tell him, I was saying, but you know, was he doing regular medical checks? I said no. It's a very complicated type of cancer because the symptoms manifest when it's stage 3, stage 4, by which time very little can be done. So 2 months ago, he started to have a cough. The cough is not going. He consults a doctor. He says, I have chest pain, I have a chest, and cough. They do so many checks, and the doctors tell him your lungs are all black. And then there's a second opinion sought in Nairobi, from what Charles Odongtho told me today. And the doctors say 90% damage done. Actually, 95. That's what Odongtho told me. So it's basically a death sentence. So our big brother comes back to Kampala. This is 2 months ago, and keeps it from the Dismas and Kundas and all of us basically, because I also discovered this only 2 days ago. And Chris Obore also discovered it sometime this week. And the call today, when I see Chris Obore's call, I say, this must be the worst. I was driving to Munyonyo for the Law Society AGM. Chris tells me, Ivan, you know what, Chris, Onapito's died. The first person I called was Dismas in Kunda.
And you even became, you first made me like that he first went to hospital, he had 95% before you tell me the man is dead. So I wanted to punch you.
So I called Dismas, I called Honorable Muhanga, I called Mwenda, I called the Vice President and so many other people. It's a very disastrous loss. But that's his life. But I think that Onapito was also a very lucky man because all of us here attended the launch of his book, which was also a farewell party for him from Nile Breweries as Director of Corporate and Legal Affairs, but also a 3-in-1 event in the sense of installation as chairman board. But
and then in January we had the wedding.
Yes, then the wedding. But in both events, you could see testimonies. In fact, I was watching one of the videos from the Nile Breweries event. His kids, his wife, his friends, those people whose lives he touched, don't even have to say anything at the funeral because whatever they needed to say, they said it to Onapito when he was alive. They celebrated him.
It was actually the same thing at the wedding.
Yeah, even at the wedding.
We were
yeah. And if you remember the wedding, he made a very powerful statement.
Before you tell us that, let's go for a quick commercial break. And when we return, we shall begin. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Derek Wandera. I'm still the host for this show, The Hotseat. I'm joined by...
there's no one who's going to overthrow you. So
I have to make sure that Joseph here doesn't overthrow me because it is very, very... I'm going to read a few eulogies from... people who sit on this panel, who have sat on this panel regularly with Onapito for such a long time, and he's been part of this show almost week in, week out. I start with Angelo Izama. He says, I envy Onapito for the life of balance that he led. He was sophisticated while being socially conscious and protector and practical with his obligations. He took responsibility, often privately, for his own flaws and was gracious and kind regarding the flaws of others, always finding a way to forge forward, as we all must do. The end. That is Angelo eulogizing Onapito. Another is Obed Katurebe, who says, farewell, gentle guy giant. We shall miss your brain power, sophisticated sense of humor and calmness. Your friendship was always real. We continue to hold your family in prayer. Rest well, greater in the greater beyond. And I will read this last before I bring in Ivan, who was giving us some synopsis of his first meeting. Emmanuel Aineviona, now the head public relations officer at the Ministry of Health. I just woke up to the sad news of the demise of a senior honor. I hope I'll be back for this burial. We'll miss him greatly. Whatever. So I bring you Ivan in. You were giving us that in about 2 minutes, just when you first met him and what you recollect about.
Yeah, so, I grew up in this place. Monita is home to me. Yeah. Between age 16 and 25, I was always here. S6 VAC, Form 4 VAC, first year law school, second year law school, third year law school, fourth year law school. LDC, I was always in this newsroom.
In O level, what were you doing here? Were you sweeping?
No, there was a magazine. I'll protect
We're writing for TV magazine, and that was our entry point to this place. So, because I was, especially between first year and fourth year law school, I was practically full time. I was just an evening student in the law class. I was a full-time writer here. So every Friday evening, I would wait I would be in the newsroom. And Ona would come here with his Land Cruiser and sit, always on time. He would come 20 minutes earlier, sit, read newspapers, relax in the car. So I would always go and pick a conversation with him. He said, oh, you're from Amuria? Yes. Okay, who are your parents? What do you do? Why are you studying law? But all the time in the newsroom. What Joseph was saying earlier, what's your passion, what drives you, that fatherly son talk. So I can say became acquaintances and friends along the way. And it's a very tragic loss, because you have someone whose life was only starting. I mean, he had the honor of being installed as chairman board of one of the country's top 5 taxpayers when he was exiting a managerial role. Very rare.
Yeah,
very rare. That you leave a big company at the level of a manager and then you made board chairman. Extremely unprecedented. And then he shortly after becomes chairman board of the Soroti Fruit Factory. Basically was at a point where his generation, people in their late 50s, early 60s, were now they knew Martin Alikez, the late Kagugube.
Yep.
That group where you find someone is on 6 boards, a member of a board in a bank.
Time to pass on your working experience to the next
Basically,
generation.
what in Amuria we call self-actualization. He had really reached there. And you're comfortable, you're not under pressure. You don't have to play the kind of data intrigue games people play here to get promotions and get jobs and try to catch the eye of the president and all that. He was at that point where life is starting to now make sense. You're writing, you almost gravitating towards being a philosopher and a thought leader. He was very passionate about issues of Teso sub-region, for example, the leadership politics there, the election of the Emorimor. I remember he was very involved. At one point, he was in the camp that was against the current Emorimor, so he calls me and says, Ivan, whom do we need to engage so that this guy doesn't take over? So I called the Honorable Peter Gwang, and Peter Gwang told me, tell Onapito he has better things to do. This guy is going to be the Emorimor, and nothing will stop it. So I call Onapito, he says, so the powers that be want him to be there more, okay, let me back out. I'm giving that example because I want to show the maturity, but also the social and political consciousness and awareness that he had. He was very politically aware. He would tell where the political current is going and be careful not to ride against, to really read the politics and be politically correct when he needed to be, but also be sensitive to people's sentiments and that kind of thing. So it's a loss of a thought leader, a loss of a shining star with a stellar career in the corporate world, and to his family, Kathy and the children, our utmost sympathies.
I want to bring in Joseph here. Joe, looking at all these fields that Ona has been in and has basically conjured them all to perfection almost, what would you look and what would you say about his legacy that he leaves behind, that rich history, that rich kind of person that Ivan is talking about?
Now, I think you know, it's such a hard question. You should be asking that one to Dismas, the wise one. but when you look back, you know, Ona had strong opinions, but his strong opinions would not get in his way of dealing with you. We have people nowadays, I don't know if it's a Ugandan thing or whatever, when somebody disagrees with your views, he actually disagrees with you, a person.
Yeah.
Ona separated the two. And that's a big lesson to all of us. Learn to know that I've disagreed with what Derek is saying, but it doesn't mean that I hate Derek. So if you are saying we need to bang the tables and do whatever, it doesn't mean that you have a personal problem with people on the other side. That's something that Ona was able to, I think that's why it was easy for him to move from a journalist to an editor-in-chief who was basically managing the business and come from that, and then you are running, you're a president's press secretary. And you know, at
MP
the time...
in between.
MP in between. Yeah. And you know, when he was MP, that's when there's a time, that's a time when there was the removal of the age limit. And the third term, you know, all those things happened around the same time, and he was in parliament. But what... Ona, I remember Andrew teasing him that, you know, did you have money in your jacket? It was funny. I'm just remembering that evening.
Money for what?
There was, in both cases, the removal of the age limit and the term limit. There was bribery in Parliament. So. Amidst all that, Ona stayed calm. I think that's why he was able to go and operate smoothly in State House as a president's press secretary. And this is why it's crucial to mention that, because at that time the president had what we can call sophisticated people around him, not just in Uganda, but even in the region. Yoweri was a key player. Was a key player in terms of he was really basically a big anchor. Now, unlike nowadays when he's a bit laid back, you know, he hardly travels out of the country. But by then he was literally on the plane every other day, and Onapito was with him. So to be able to be that kind of anchor and do that, it takes an extra personality. It takes extra wisdom and maturity. So what I pick from that is we can deal with issues and we don't have to be personal.
Absolutely. I want to bring in the eulogy of Melina Izama, who has also been part of this show for some long time.
No, she is part of this show.
She is part of this show.
Yeah.
Who has been part of the show with with Ona. She says, "It is with deep sadness and shock that I received this news. It was always such a pleasure to see Onapito in the studio. You knew the depth of experience from which he was drawing his insights, with which he believed he wanted to make this country better for all. His thoughtful and measured demeanor, and most of all, his smile and laughter that could light up a room, and certainly this studio. Ona, you will be missed. I am grateful for the time we overlapped. in this life. And finally, from Joel Mukisa, who has also been part of the show with
the youngest.
Ona.
Is he still the reigning youngest member of the team?
Probably he could be the youngest. He says Ona was always kind and listened, patient, even to us who were very much younger. He advised on opinions and shared his position without imposition. He will be missed for his insights and for his kindness. That is from Joel Mukisa. I want to bring you, Jimmy, in. You listen to all speakers, and one thing that cuts across, one thing that I listen to everyone is about Ona's calmness, Ona's calm demeanor, and of course the hard question that Joe talked about is what kind of legacy he leaves, especially those people who were around him. You remember on that day of when he retired, when he released his book, so many people spoke so richly about him, so proudly about him. What would you take home as something that you feel so proud to identify with from Ona's life?
Well, there's a lot. I think his humility, his wisdom. He was very brilliant, but he was also generous. You know, when he was introduced that program at Nile Breweries to sponsor the needy students, he did it out of generosity. And I had a conversation with him. Said, you know, Jimmy, when you are in a position that you can help people, especially community where you come from, it's better you should do that, because it's not good to progress as an individual. You should be able to help people who are, you know, when you're in position to do so. So that program at Nile Breweries was very, very thoughtful of him, but he was so many things, but I think it would be also called a public intellectual because of the way he dissected issues, explained. And then when you read, it was also grounded in the tradition. If you read his book, Tears and Triumph, you will see a lot of the Ateso proverbs or word sayings. In Ateso, we say this. I almost thought, is it because working around the president,
who always
says in Yankole, we say this, but you feel this connection to the people at home, which is rare for some people who, when they're up there, then they detach themselves.
He was a culturally grounded man.
Indeed, he was.
We need to go for a quick commercial break, and when we return, we shall wrap it up, and then we'll go to another. Okay, let's go for a quick commercial break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We go for our final round of this show. After a back and forth talk, I have Kwezi, who has allowed me to read this. He says, 3 years ago, Dr. Kagoro and I interviewed Ona for a book project. This morning, I was revisiting our post-interview notes. We would have been blown away by Ona's insider accounts of what goes on in the President Museveni's household. What a man.
No wonder he was always called, Andrew always said this president spokesman.
Yes, he was always president spokesman.
And he said, hey, you mean I've not been getting this?
Ivan, you wanted to say something. Take it away in about 1 minute.
Of course, I mean, there's so much that can be said about Ona, but I was telling Mr. Moses Berhanga, the president's senior presidential advisor, when I called to condole him, I was telling him, you know, you need to write a book, Moses, and he laughed. And he told me, see, Ona has left, but he's left a book with his life, his memories, his thoughts, his insights, his worldview for his children, but also for the rest of the country to always have as a reference point. I think he did well to do that. Perhaps it was God's way of saying, you've got some undone work, do it before I call you. Yeah. You know, he did a wedding, colorful wedding with his wife in February, was it?
January. End of January.
He basically did whatever he had to do.
Summarized his life.
And but I think one of the most important takeaways is humility and to be unassuming, because Ona had fairly significant access to power, in ways that many people may not appreciate because he didn't, throw it in your face. I know, for example, a few years ago, this is after the 2016 election, when I used to appear with him on the NTV talk show on Sunday for the state. Someone from State House reached out to me and said, I've been assigned to speak to Onapito with the possibility of convincing him to come back to State House as a presidential spokesman, but with a more glorified title, but really a presidential spokesman. But I have no personal connection with him, but I always see with him on TV. Can you arrange a meeting? So I called Onapito. I said, someone from State House wants to have a meeting. We had breakfast, and after breakfast, there was a meeting with the PPS and so many other things. And Onapito didn't take that conversation far because he told me heart to heart, no, I don't think I want to go back in that system and be a presidential spokesman. Then, what many people wouldn't know, he had been offered the job of Director of Communications at Parliament, the one that Chris Obore has now. Headhunted, when Kadaga was Speaker, he turned it down. So, but, remained and assuming you didn't know these things unless, he shared them with you. And he was not the guy that, throws power in your face in a city where everyone is fighting each other and trying to bring people down so that you can rise. No, Onapito was just a good human being.
Thank you. In 30 seconds, just a takeaway.
30 seconds on Onapito?
No, a takeaway. Just one word.
2 minutes.
I don't know. I wish Onapito a good rest. He has done his part. He has been a good friend. He has been a good father. The interesting thing that Onapito got his girlfriend first. We were in the same house, the late Margaret. And so when I saw his son speak at the function when he was living in Albuquerque, Ian, it dawned on me and said that he at least is not dying in vain. At least he has left a family.
He has left someone. Unfortunately, that has been our time, and we have to sign out for today until we come back next week with even a bigger and better panel.
Yes.
Can we say Onapito, as he used to say, look, rest in peace.
Onapito, I'd like to start with you. This stinks of the corruption we've gotten accustomed to in public procurement in Uganda. Wouldn't you agree?
First of all, we need to put some historical context. Outsider on the inside in the NRM things. He always
takes the side of the people.
And surprisingly, maybe that's why he has lasted this long in the cabinet, including when he lost a parliamentary seat. And he tends to make light of every serious situation. He keeps on laughing and you don't know whether to really hate him or to like him.
But doesn't he raise serious concerns that, one, this company has not shown that it's been able to do this work anywhere else in the world?
I don't know whether he has information because I don't have the correct information. So whether he has the correct information. What I know, of course, it shows that like many of these kind of deals, they are single-sourced. And by single-sourced, I mean they are brought by an individual to the table. They are not a result of... In the first place, you would have started with this matter being perhaps raised in the cabinet, a cabinet paper, introduced in parliament. But it seems it's just a reaction to the president's overall wishes for improved security. And then individuals who are shadowy, who are not clearly known, end up surfacing with a very juicy deal.